new opportunities for other Russian cooperation?
I think if there's a change in attitude at the top of both our countries, the answer is yes. But even if there is problems at the top, it doesn't mean that individuals like myself shouldn't be coming here and talking to you and engaging with you and encouraging you to come and visit the UK in the same way I would encourage my friends to come to Russia and visit Russia. So we need to, same way I separate Nigel Farage, Tommy Robinson, I'm separating out politicians from ordinary people.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, at the back.
Okay, going back again to the United States of America, you've already mentioned that you aren't a huge fan of Trump's politics.
No.
Could you give some arguments, maybe briefly, just to describe your point of view and your attitude toward it?
Well, I think, I don't like his politics, and I don't like his personality. Okay, so he really has nothing, in my view, as a human being, to recommend him. I think he is a bad person. Sometimes there are people whose politics you may not like, but actually they can be perfectly... I didn't like Obama's foreign policy, okay? But I didn't think Obama was a bad person. I thought Obama was a well-meaning person. I just didn't like some of his foreign policy approaches. Trump, though, appeals to the worst in people's inner selves, of a group of people there, which is not one of wanting humanity to get along with each other. He creates tensions and pits one group against another. And I don't like that. I don't like it when any country becomes isolationist and doesn't allow wanting people to come in, makes disparaging remarks about other countries. I think politicians are fair game in attacking. We all are, that's why we're in it. But I don't think ordinary people are. And he is pitting groups of people within the United States against everybody. I don't necessarily think all people from south of the border in Mexico or Central America or South America are bad people. I don't think all people from the Middle East are bad people. There may be bad people in both groups, but as we know, there are bad people in America. If you look at most of the shootings recently, they're by, ordinary white Americans who are killing other Americans. So it's not terrorists who are doing it, it's not immigrants who are doing it, it's ordinary Americans who are taking advantage of the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, to start killing other people. And until, it's not really for me to lecture other countries, but to me, if I was an American, I'd say, okay, you have the right to bear arms, but not to have these big repeater rifles or machine guns. There's a difference. I own guns in my house. I have a rifle, I have a shotgun, but I have serious vetting from the police. The police come, they make sure that I've locked up my gun, that I separate the bullets from everything else so that it's secure and safe. And I have a doctor who says, he's a sane person, he's okay. In America, I think the condition is you have to be insane, then they'll say, fine, it's okay. So, no, I don't like the way I would view the Second Amendment has been abused. And I think that's sort of been a problem there. But going back to your original question, I think Trump's policies and I think Trump's personality are just dreadful. I mean, I think did you see his Twitter comment about Macron? Did anybody see that? No, okay. Did you get Twitter here? No. You do? Okay, well, follow the real Donald Trump, or whatever his Twitter handle is. 2 days ago, he said to Macron, if it wasn't for the American, now you guys were already beginning to learn German before the Americans came in to save you. Now, there may be some truth in that, it's not for me to comment, but if you're French, that's pretty offensive. And I think if you're a leader of a big country, you shouldn't be insulting necessarily the leaders of other countries. And I think that's just one example of the sort of language. It was the centenary of the end of the First World War this past week. The world leaders all turned up for a ceremony in France. Donald Trump was there. Because it was raining, he said, I don't want to go, I don't want to get wet. Now, if every other world leader can turn up there, and veterans who are probably in their 80s and 90s can turn up on a rainy day, Donald Trump can have the courtesy to actually turn up to people who sacrificed their lives, so Donald Trump would have the freedom to say and do the things that he does, even though I disagree with them. Yeah?
Regarding the UK-Russian relations, do you think they will deteriorate even more, or vice versa?
No, I don't. I think they're pretty bad. So, if you want my analysis, so I don't think they're going to get much worse. So I would say, we have a lot of, I think, differences to iron out, but I think we've reached the lowest. I think at the moment we've reached beyond the lowest point, and I think hopefully things will improve from now. Now the question is, how long does that take? And I don't know, and I think that's depends on the willingness of the leadership in the Kremlin, the EU, the White House, and Downing Street to try and iron out whatever those differences are. Yeah.
What's your personal attitude towards Theresa May, and what do you think of her as the Prime Minister?
I'm from a politically different faction in the Conservative Party, so I was pro-Brexit, so from a different group within the Conservative Party. I think she's smart, she's well educated, but for me hasn't delivered Brexit in the way that I want to see Brexit delivered. And until you're Prime Minister, you never know how difficult the job is. So it's very easy maybe for me and others to criticize her. But I think she had a very difficult job to do, because you have one group of people in Parliament who want to stay in the EU, and there's another group who want to get out at all costs and go on world WTO trading. I think most people, and I traditionally would put myself in this group, want a trading relationship or some sort of arrangement with the EU. We don't mind that, as long as we don't have the things I was saying earlier on issues of sovereignty and immigration and regulation and taxation, things that I'm concerned with, where they don't have as big an impact on our country as they have traditionally.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now that you've mentioned that you don't like Trump's personality, I also don't
Or his
like...
policies.
Yeah, well, imagine if he was a good political man. Would you forgive him his lack of tolerance, his attitude?
So that's a good moral question. So, if we don't like somebody, but they are doing the right thing, does that matter? So I'm going to throw that back to you. Do you think if you don't like their personality, but they are doing the right thing for your country, does it matter?
I think what matters is what is done.
What is done?
Yes.
Okay, so who here wants to disagree with that and says someone's personality is important as well?
Well, the question was, what would you rate more important?
I don't know, I'm asking you guys. So the ends justify the means. Is it? Not quite that. Okay, the ends justify the bad personality. So is that okay as long as things get done? Doesn't matter how horrible somebody is? Yeah?
Well, maybe when we call a person a good person, we think we get this feeling from the actions he takes. So if his actions are wrong, we suppose that this person is a bad person. And if we don't know the person and we have that, we have that kind of misunderstanding between what we think and what we see, it's something about us, I suppose. So not knowing the person and thinking that his actions are
Okay, so
right,
there are
this
people
person-
who think Donald Trump is okay. And they think what he is doing is okay. So do you think they're projecting their own personalities onto Donald Trump and say, actually, he speaks my language and is not a bad person? Yep.
But do you think it's possible to be a really good politician but be a bad person? Because if you're a good politician, you understand what your people want. It means that you're a really good person, because bad person will never care about his, people.
Yeah. I think people, for example, I'll stick with the United States or the UK. I'll do two examples there. I think Richard Nixon was a personality who people didn't like, but I think his policies, I think people felt were good in many ways. He effectively brought the end of the Vietnam War, he engaged with China, who nobody was talking to, so he did some good things, but people didn't like Nixon. There was something about him they didn't like, and he was called Tricky Dicky. Margaret Thatcher was incredibly unpopular as a person, but actually, I felt, did the right thing for the country. I think if you look at Obama, I think, was a lovely person, meant well and everything else, but I didn't like his policies. So, it all depends, really. I think, but I think in Trump's case, I might have a perception of Trump being a bad person